So what's up everyone, and welcome to another edition of Comics, Animations, and Movies. So I've been going around YouTube watching a lot of the reaction videos to the recently released trailer for Alita Battle Angel. And one common thing I noticed with a lot of these videos was the big confusion with regards to the question, what the heck is going on? You know, a lot of people were intrigued by the trailer and they were excited, but they were like, what the heck is going on? Anyway, so I thought I would continue on with making a few more of these videos. So I will be doing a question and answer video here, and I will be going over 4 questions. Now, most of these questions will be relatively spoiler-free. The first question will be completely spoiler-free. The 2 following questions after that will be covering somewhat the background with regards to the story and not really the plot of the story at all. So you might get some information with regards to the movie, but it will be relatively spoiler-free as well. The last question will have a little bit of spoiler associated with it, but it's actually a question that I noticed a lot of people were asking. And I noticed a lot of people were giving like information which were like, where the heck did you get that information from? So I thought I would cover the last question as well. But I will warn people or the viewers with regards to the last question that it is a spoiler question before I cover it, so that if you don't want to be spoiled with regards to the movie, then you can turn out the video at that point. Okay, so the first question that I noticed a lot of people were asking is Alita Battle Angel based upon anime or a manga? And the answer is yes and yes. It's based upon both an animation video as well as a comic manga. And of course, the animation video is based upon the comic manga. So the base foundation story comes from the comic itself. Now the comic is a fairly long comic. It started in the 1990s. It actually came out in 1990, and it spans over 100 chapters in the comic. It's written by a gentleman named Yukito Kishiro, and he continues to write the Battle Angel Alita comic series even now. And the comic is separated into 3 manga series, and so you could think of this as a manga trilogy. And the first of the manga series is the one that most people know, and it's the one that's aptly named Battle Angel Alita outside of Japan. And in Japan, it's called GUNNM, which actually is a combination of an English word and a Japanese word, and means gun dreams. Now, this first series is a 9-volume series, and of course starts with the very beginning of the story where Alita wakes up and continues on throughout the journey of Alita, traveling around Earth and learning more about herself and the world around her. The actual OVA video or the anime with regards to Battle Angel Alita actually only covers about 1/10 of the entire first series. So as much as the video is really nice, it really doesn't delve into much of the Battle Angel Alita storyline. And the storyline gets very detailed. Now the second part, titled Battle Angel Alita Last Order, or GUNNM Last Order in Japan, starts off where Alita travels into space. And from there, she starts learning even more about herself as well as the history of the human race. And it starts going over the understanding of why Earth became this dystopian kind of planet. And it goes over a lot of the history with regards to the story. Now, the third one, which a lot of people, I guess, don't realize exists, is called GUNNM Mars Chronicle. Now, I'm not sure if it ever came out in the United States as a book series, and so I don't know if there's a corresponding Battle Angel Alita Mars Chronicle. But basically, the last series, or the third of the series, covers the continuation of the story where Last Order left off. I don't want to go into it too much here because of the fact that that will create spoilers, but it continues on. Last Order, if anybody has read Last Order, knows that the very last chapter kind of abruptly ends with Gully going off to do something. Well, Mars Chronicles starts off with exactly that point where she continues to do that, whatever something that she's doing at the very end of Last Order. But it's also an origin story, and it flashes back to the very beginning where Alita is a child. And although it hasn't covered significant amount of the story yet, I figure that it'll continue on to give the understanding and clarify where Alita got all of her capabilities, which I again won't go into to avoid spoilers, at least not yet anyway. And so, yeah, the Mars Chronicle is ongoing, and right now it's talking about, little Alita. And if anybody's interested, then yeah, they should look into all three of this comic series. It's a very interesting comic. I will warn people, it's an extremely violent comic. So if you're not into violent comics, then this may not be for you. However, it is an extremely emotional and moving comic. I did notice a lot of the reaction videos saying that they got chills looking at the trailer. And that's actually very good because of the fact that the story is extremely moving. And if you read the story, you'll probably get chills reading the story as well. Now, one point of trivia for people who have read the first series, if you notice, the first series ends completely. I mean, it's all self-contained and kind of Alita lives happily ever after sort of thing. And then, of course, for people who have read Last Order, you notice that the story begins with the story completely ignoring the last few chapters of the first series. And Alita gets to the point where she would live happily ever after, but it abruptly changes and she's again miserable throughout Last Order. And why that was the case is because when Yukito Kishiro was writing the very first series, when he came to the end, he became critically, very ill, not critically ill. He's alive still. But he became very ill, and he wasn't sure if he actually would survive the illness. So he quickly rushed through and wrote the last few chapters of the first series. Well, luckily for everyone, he survived the illness. And so then he looked back at the series and noticed that he wasn't particularly happy with the rushed few chapters that completed the first series. So he completely ignored that and completely rewrote those chapters as the first few chapters of Last Order. And so although the first series completely ends and Alita lives happily ever after sort of deal, people understand that those last few chapters are kind of an alternate universe or alternative ending sort of thing, and the real story continues on in Last Order. Anyway, that's about all I wanted to say with regards to the first question and the comic series. So if you're interested in the comic series, yeah, go read it. It's really good. Battle Angel Alita, Battle Angel Alita Last Order, and if it does exist, Battle Angel Alita Mars Chronicle. Okay, so the next question is one that probably people who have watched the trailer don't even know to ask, but people who have watched the anime may have wondered, and that's the question of exactly how is the floating city floating? And the answer to that is it's not. If you look at it closely, the floating city is not really floating, it's actually hanging. If you look at the comic, you'll notice, or if you look at the anime even, you'll notice that there is a giant tube that comes out from the top of the city, floating city, and continuously goes out into the sky. And what happens is basically that tube continues to go up and actually gets and connects to a giant orbital ring that spans the Earth. Now, if you're interested in knowing what an orbital ring is then just Google orbital ring and space elevator, and you'll get a lot of pictures of what orbital rings are supposed to look like. But it's basically a giant man-made ring that spans the entire Earth, and there are spokes that come out of the ring and come down to the Earth to support the ring. Now, if you notice the one for the floating city of Tephares or Zalem, you'll notice that the bottom of that seems like it's broken. Now, the comic never really shows the other spokes that come down to Earth, but there is a good possibility that the other spokes are actually connected to Earth, and the one in Tephares or Zalem somehow got the bottom broken, and that's why it kind of looks like it's floating. It's hard to tell, but that may be one reason, and that may be the reason why even if there is a ring, it can stay synchronously in orbit with the Earth. Anyway, so that is a very short question. Now you start learning more about that in the future chapters of the following series. The first series really doesn't cover that, but once you go into Last Order, you start going into more information with regards to that. So yeah, it's a background information that won't give you any more spoilers with regards to this movie, but I thought you might be interested. Now, the third question is one that I heard a lot in all of these reaction videos, as well as the comments to these reaction videos. And it falls into two parts, but the first part is, of course, is Alita a human or a robot? And the second part of that, which is corresponding, you also heard just as much, is why are Alita's eyes so freaking big? Why is she the only weird looking character in the entire movie? Everybody else looks human, and Alita looks like a comic character. Why is she the only weird looking one? So I would like to answer that, but it will be a mild spoiler for this. So if you don't want to know the answer to that, then you could stop the video here. It really won't affect the understanding of the story, but I thought that I would clarify that. Okay, so if you're still here, then I'll continue to answer that first part of the question. The answer is Alita is human, but she is a cybernetic humanoid. Basically, she is part machine and part human. The only part of her body which is still completely human is her brain. Now, there may be a possibility that her spine is also human, but in the latter parts of the comic series, even that I think is gone, and the only real part that she has left is her brain. And so she is a humanoid. I mean, she does have feelings, she does have emotions. She's basically a human character, except with a cybernetic body. Now, if you think about it, all of our bodies, if you take the brain out, is basically a completely useless kind of bunch of flesh. So really, I'm not sure if that makes her any less human than anybody else. However, she is a human being, and she is not a robot. This is not a artificial intelligence movie. This is not a iRobot sort of movie. This is about a person and her journeys. She just happens to have a machine body. Now, the next question, why are her eyes so weird? Why is she the only one that's strange looking? Well, she isn't. I mean, even in the trailer, if you look at the trailer closely, this guy is a human. And this person is a human. And although they didn't show it in the trailer, even this guy is a human. Now, this image comes from the actual comic, and this guy is kind of a background character. He's called a deckman. He pops up all over the place. There's a bunch of them that pop up, and they're not really main characters to the story, but they pop up all over the place, so I thought I showed one of these guys. Now, I'll give you a little bit of a background information. It's not a spoiler because of the fact that it really doesn't even come out in the story of the comic. It's something that the author wrote somewhere in the appendix of one of the comics, and it basically describes what exactly a deckman is and why a human becomes a deckman. And basically, it comes out that, of course, in that era, there are also still deeply depressed people who are somewhat suicidal. And so the city of Tephares kind of gives a solution for that. And if people come in, then they could get treatment for their depression and their suicidal tendencies. I'm sorry, I'm starting to get tongue-tied here. But anyway, so if people come in and sign the contract with regards to getting the treatment, then the city of Tephares takes the person to the back room and literally demolishes their body. You know, in the appendix, they kind of show drills and saws coming out to hack the body away and, harvest the organs and stuff like that. But basically, the only thing left is the brain, and they scoop up the brain and put it into this cylindrical-looking apparatus and turn it into a deckman and basically tell the guy, well, you got a purpose now. You can help support the city and have a reason for living. And so these deckmen basically travel all over the city and attach themselves to various mechanical attachments to provide utility support to the city. And I have never seen really a depressed deckman, so I guess the treatment works, but gosh, I mean, wow, what a treatment. So in any case, Alita is a human. Those other mechanical beings or beasts that you might think of in the trailer are also human. There are a lot of mechanical humans that come out in the series. So, if this movie keeps on going and if sequels come out, then after a while you get used to seeing all these unusual looking humans in the Battle Angel Alita series. Okay, so this brings us to the fourth question, which I mentioned in the beginning is somewhat a spoiler sort of answer. The question itself is Alita really badass? You do see her kind of acting pretty tough in the trailer, but is she really tough? Does she know how to fight? And the answer to that is somewhat a spoiler answer because I will be describing her capabilities in the answer. So if you don't want to hear it, then that's fine. I will split it up into two. I'll first answer the question with regards to is she really badass and go into a little bit of detail. And then in the second part, I'll go into the detail of her capabilities. So if you want to hear just the first part, then I will tell it right now. So if you don't want to hear it, then please turn off the video at this point. Okay, so I presume that anybody who has turned out the video are already gone. And so, yeah, with regards to the first question, yes, she is seriously badass. I mean, she is seriously badass. Yes, she knows how to fight. Knows how to fight is an understatement. And as you keep on going, even in the very first movie, you'll probably learn quite a bit with regards to her fighting capabilities. Okay, so what are her fighting capabilities? And that's where I heard a lot of people say very unusual answers. And so I did want to go into that. But again, this will now go into some significant spoilers, not just of this movie, but maybe of corresponding follow-up movies as well. So if you don't want to hear this part, then please turn off the video at this point. Okay, still here? Okay, well, let's continue on. Okay, so yes, Alita is a martial artist, and the martial art that she knows is one that doesn't exist in this real world, but does exist in the comic world, and it's called Panzerkunst, which I guess translates to armored arts. And it is a lost art in this story. It is a legendary art, and it is considered to be the ultimate martial art. Now, this is not like your typical martial art. People often say, oh, what is martial arts? Well, it's a form of self-defense. This is not a self-defense art. It is specifically designed for one thing and one thing only, and it is to kill as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time with the maximum collateral damage. Yes, it is a serious killing art. And that is what Alita knows, and she effectively uses that throughout the comic series. Yeah, so if I were to try to bring it out in what you might know now, you remember in The Matrix how they downloaded jujitsu into Neo's brain, and then he wakes up and goes, whoa, I know jujitsu. Well, if you then decided to download every possible martial arts that ever existed in the human history, and then gave him every other knowledge with regards to usage of guns, usage of explosives, usage of everything else, then gave him dancing and acrobatic skills so that he can basically move his body around in any way possible, and then filtered out all the useless miscellaneous artistic parts of all the martial arts and only left the parts that were typically focused to killing a human being. Then the combination of all that is basically something like Panzerkunst. Now, there are more information with regards to this martial art, and there is a reason why it's called the armored arts rather than just the martial arts, but I won't go too much into detail here. I just wanted to give some information so that people will understand. Yes, Alita is badass. Okay, so anyway, those were the 4 questions that I did want to cover in this video. I know I didn't cover everything, and I apologize for that. I also apologize for anybody who is upset that they did hear some information that they didn't want to hear about. I try to provide some information or warning that there are spoilers, but if you did hear something that you didn't want to, I apologize for that. For everybody else, I hope this clarifies some questions with regards to the story. Now, I will be making at least one more follow-up video for this, and that one will be extremely filled with spoilers. I know there are some people who have left comments in the videos with regards to the comic series, and I know that they are veteran knowledge to comic readers of Alita Battle Angel, and I thought I would make a discussion video based upon the trailer as well as their knowledge of the comic. And so if you want to get completely spoiled, then yeah, I mean, join us in that video. But I will put a major spoiler warning on that particular video, and hopefully I'll have that video up sometime soon, maybe next weekend or something like that. In any case, thank you very much for watching this video. We hope to continue to make more comics, animations, and movie videos in the future, and when we do so, I hope you join us at that time. If you have any comments, as always, please post it in the comments section below. And yeah, we wish you all the best with regards to your comic adventures. And until the next time, Jaya, nice day, everyone.